Okay, this is just an introduction to how to plot points on a graph and what a graph looks like. We have two number lines that are crossing each other. Notice this number line where they cross is 0. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then on the other side of 0 is -1, -2, -3, -4, -5. And then tipping a number line up on its side, again, this is 0, and above 0, +1, +2, +3, +4, +5. Then below 0 are your negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, -5 here. So, and also this line that's horizontal, this is always going to be our x-axis. It's the x number line. And the one that's going up and down is going to be our y-axis. Now, when we're going to graph things, we always use two pieces of information to find a location on the graph. If you've ever played Battleship, that game, you'll have done something like this. Because you have to have, like, you say like I-5, and you have to find where does the I and the 5 cross paths, kind of thing. And so when we have our set of coordinates like this, that we call them coordinates, or we call them ordered pairs, but it's the information to put a dot on the graph. And the x value comes first, and then the y value. It's in alphabetical order. So I have some sets of coordinates written here. They're always in parentheses. There's a comma that is between them. And so the first number tells you how to move along the x-axis. That's your left to right movement. And then the second number always tells you how to move along the y-axis. So that's your up and down location. So it's like giving somebody two pieces of information to find how to get to your house. It's like, oh, you know, go 1 block west and 4 blocks north and you'll find my house. You know, it's those two pieces of information. So this first location, this -1 and 4, -1 on the x, so we're going to go to the -1 on the x, but don't put a dot there because we have to find the location. We've only gone 1 block. So then +4 on the y, that means go in the positive direction. So this dot right here, its address is -1, +4, because we went -1 on the x, positive up 4 on the y. And notice how the -1 lines up with that dot, and the +4 lines up with that dot. It's where if you drew lines up from each of those numbers on their axis, that's where they would cross. That's where the dot belongs. So the kind of same thing would happen. Let's do the third one down, 5 and -3. So 5 on the x-axis, it would be lined up with this number right here, and -3 on the y-axis is lined up about here. So our dot belongs where those two would cross. That's our 5 and -3. And this one was -1 and 4. Now, we don't usually draw those lines to see where they cross. We just kind of visualize it. Going down to the fourth one, we'll go over to the 2, so that's lined up here. And then the 4 is here, so you can kind of see where they're, up here. So this is where 2 and 4 are located right here. That's that set of 2 on the x, 4 on the y. I'm going to go back up to the second one, 0 and 7. So 0 on the x-axis is right here, so that we go here, and then we go to the 7 on the y-axis. Well, let's clear up here. So here is the spot that we would call 0 and 7, and that location, when it lands on the axis, it's called an intercept, which we'll do some more things later with that. But since it's touching the y-axis, we would call this the y-intercept because it touches the y-axis. And every time something touches the y-axis, the x value, you'll notice, is a 0. And then the next one we have is -3, -3. So -3 on the x, and then down 3 or -3 on the y. This is where it lines up. So here's our -3, -3. And I'm going to put another one on here. If we have 5 and 0, well, we go to the 5 on the x-axis, and then 0 lines up right there with this line, so it's right here. This landed right on the x-axis, so it's at 5 and 0, and that's our x-axis. So that's our x-intercept. An intercept always touches an axis. So up here we had the y-intercept and x was 0. Now we have y being 0. That means you're having an x-intercept. Down here, this one would be 0 on the x and 2 on the y. Just like this one, these two both have zeros on the x. As I mentioned, y-intercepts always will have 0 on the x. And then, if we were right here, this one would say 2 on the x and 0 on the y. Also being an intercept because the y is 0. So the opposite letter is always 0 when it comes to intercepts. Intercepts, the opposite letter is 0. So if they asked you, name the coordinates of an intercept, they gave you a line like this on a graph, let's say like this. If they said, what are the intercepts, then they want you to name this spot, and whatever this is, you're going to have 0 for y. Whatever that is, you're going to have 0 for x, because it's the y-intercept. So, we'll be talking further about those in future sections.